All we wanted porta toilets. They had them all over the place. Were you with Mayor Nagin at that time?
I was. I don't know whether that. I don't know whether I was with him on that particular date or not, but I know the area he's talking about. And
can you explain to this committee why, if there had been obvious deep concerns about sanitary facilities, about lighting, why those facilities, those concerns had not been met?
Because they were having the United States Army, the National Guard, was having difficulty getting those supplies into the Superdome. You need to understand that there are media reports of shooting, there are media reports of looting and everything else going on. And if the Army moves in there, the Army kills people. And so they had to be very careful about moving those things in there. By the same token, you had civilians who began to move things in there and couldn't get them there. So yes, there were things stockpiled, and as that supply chain continued to fill up, Zephyr Field was full of a lot of stuff. And those things were continuing to go on the other end to get into the city. And so for you to take a snapshot of Mayor Nagin going there and being there for a few minutes and seeing all of that, and him screaming in his typical way about, I want all that stuff in the city, again, is taking it out of context, Senator.
When did you order that food and water be delivered into the convention center?
The day that we learned about it, that Wednesday. We immediately ordered that stuff to be moved. Whether it was or not, whether it was actually done or not, is the question you should be asking. And if it wasn't, you need to be asking why. Because we didn't have the capacity within FEMA ourselves to do that, and we needed the 5th Army or the 1st Army to move that stuff in there. Plus, I will also remind you that there's no...
Mr. Brown, just on that point alone, and that's what my notes indicate, and I just wanted to check the records. Records that have been produced to the committee by DHS indicate that FEMA did not order food and water for the convention center until 8 a.m. on Friday, September 2nd.
I can tell you unequivocally, Senator, under oath, that the minute that I learned that there were people in the convention center, I turned to Bill Loki, my operations person on the ground, and said, get MREs, get stuff moving in there.
Did you ever do any follow-up to find out whether that happened?
Senator, I continued to do operations as best I could all along throughout that time. And I would continually ask questions, are things happening? Are things happening? Are things happening?
The record is very clear as to when the order was given. It was given on Friday. And my concern is this, Mr. Brown. Again, I understand there are structural problems. I understand some of the concerns have been raised about the function of DHS and the integration of FEMA. But as I listen to your testimony, it's as if you're not prepared to kind of put a mirror in front of your face and recognize your own inadequacies and say, you know something, I made some big mistakes. I wasn't focused. I didn't get things done. And instead what you got is the problems are structural. I knew it up front. I really tried to change it. The record. The entirety of the record doesn't reflect that. And perhaps you may get a more sympathetic hearing if you had a willingness to kind of confess your own sins in this. And, your testimony here is that, you're going to communicate to the President as to what he understood. I'm not sure what you understood. I'm not sure you got it. And I got to tell you the record, not the emails, but the record reflects that you didn't get it, or you didn't in writing or some way make commands that would move people to do what has to be done until way after it should have been done.
Senator, with all due respect, what do you want me to say? I have admitted to mistakes publicly. I've admitted to mistakes in hearings. What more, Senator Coleman, do you want from me?
Well, I think...
What do you want from me? I'm asking you. What do you want from me?
What I'm hearing today and what I heard from your testimony is coming in and talking about all these structural traps, that the die was cast. That was your testimony today. That by the integration, and by the way, I have my own questions about the integration of FEMA and DHS. But what I heard today from you, that the die was cast. And what I'm saying, Mr. Brown, I'm saying that, in fact, no leadership makes a difference. You didn't provide the leadership, even with structural infirmities. Strong leadership can overcome that, and clearly that wasn't the case here.
Well, Senator, that's very easy for you to say, sitting behind that dais and not being there in the middle of that disaster, watching that human suffering and watching those people dying and trying to deal with those structural dysfunctionalities even within the federal government. And I absolutely resent you sitting here saying that I lack the leadership to do that, because I was down there pushing everything that I could. I've admitted to those mistakes, and if you want something else from me, put it on the table and you tell me what you want me to admit to.
A little more candor would suffice. Thank you, Madam
How much
Chair.
more candid? What more? Ask me the question, Senator. Ask me the question.
Thank you. I think my time is up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well,
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.